the wonderful Billie Holiday. Billie Holiday was a singer and a jazz vocalist, but was she the most influential jazz vocalist of all times? Well, according to Scott Yana, a veteran jazz journalist who has written about all jazz singers and from all styles for the past 30 years, she was. Billie Holiday had a thriving career for many years before her battles with substance abuse got the better of her. I would like to share a little bit about Billie Holiday from her childhood through her adulthood to her legacy and how we remember her. She was born with the given name of Eleanora Fagan on April the 17th, 1950 in Pennsylvania. Billie Holiday spent much of her childhood in Baltimore, Maryland. Her mother, Sadie, was only a teenager when she had her. Her father was widely believed to be the Clarence Holiday, who eventually became a very successful jazz musician, playing with the likes of Fletcher Henderson. Unfortunately for Billie, he was only around for a few months in her life as she grew up. Sadie, her mother, married a gentleman by the name of Philip Gott in 1920, and for a few years of Billie's life, she had somewhat of a stable home, but that marriage ended just a few years later, leaving Billie and Sadie to struggle along on their own again. Sometimes Billie was even left at home in the care of other people. People sometimes she didn't really know. I believe as a result of her unstable childhood, Billie Holiday started skipping school, and she and her mother actually had to go to court over Holiday's truancy. The courts ordered her to go to the House of Good Shepherd. Now, this House of Good Shepherd was a facility for troubled African American girls. In January of 1925 to August of that same year. Well, the only problem with that was Billie was only 9 years old. She was the youngest girl to have ever been there. In her difficult early years, Holiday found solace in music, singing along to the records of Bessie Smith and the famous Louis Armstrong. She followed her mother wherever her mother went. Her mother eventually moved to New York City in the late 20s and worked in the house of prostitution in Harlem for a time. Around the 1930s, Holiday began singing in vocal and local clubs and renamed herself Billie, Billie, after the film star Billy Dove. At the age of 18, Holiday was discovered by the famous producer John Hammond while she was performing in a Harlem jazz club. Hammond was instrumental in getting Holiday recording work with some of the most upcoming uh, artists of all times, and clarinets and band leaders, and one band leader by the name of Benny Goodman. Now with Goodman, she sang vocals for several tracks, including her very first commercial release, Your Mother-in-Law, and the 1934 top 10 hit Riffing the Scotch. Billie Holiday performed in all the New York Cafe Society clubs. She developed some of her very own trademark stage persona, one which was wearing the gardenias in her hair and singing with her head tilted back. She married James Monroe in 1941, who was already known to be a man that drank. Holiday picked up on her husband's habit of smoking opium, and the marriage didn't last long at all. But Holiday's problems with substance abuse continued. They later divorced. On July 17, 1959, Miss Holiday died from alcohol and drug related complications. Well, more than 3,000 people turned out to say goodbye to the Lady Day at her funeral held in St. Paul the Episcopal Roman Catholic Church. Her autobiography was made in 1972 into the famous film of Lady Sings the Blues, with famed singer Diana Ross playing the part of Holiday, which helped renew interest in Holiday's recordings. Well, with that, I'd like to thank you for viewing and listening to my informational video, and I'm sure you would agree that Billie Holiday was one of the greatest jazz vocalists of all times. Thank you very much.